I'm joined by Ryan Abbott, a professor from the University of Surrey, whose research and work specialises in emerging technologies. Ryan, thanks for being with us. So let's just emphasise this hyper-security. The enthusiasts behind blockchain say it is secure as nothing we've had before. Is that true?
It certainly has been so far. Bitcoin itself hasn't been hacked by anyone, and the electronic ledgers are maintained on millions of computers. And so right now the technologists seem pretty united in considering this an extremely secure technology, safer really than ledgers maintained even by very trusted financial institutions where there's perhaps only one copy.
Okay, so we now move beyond the currency itself to the idea that I'm a big business, you're a big business, and somehow our ledger of activity, our value exchange is going to be done through this blockchain technology. What's your understanding of how that works?
Well, essentially, blockchain technology is a record-keeping system, right? And so, you know, a long time ago, it used to be we each had a ledger where we would keep track of each other's debts and liabilities, agreements we've made to one another in contracts. And now with this technology, we can move into having many third parties keep track of this also. So it provides accountability, accuracy, predictability in a way that we didn't have before. And, you know, before, if we wanted that, we maybe had to use a trusted third party like a bank, or, you know, on a larger scale, use central banks. And now we're potentially removing the need for those parties. We can create maybe contracts that are self-executing, where the public sort of blockchain community makes the contract self-executing, right? And so it potentially can change the way we do business.
Does this mean that, say, a company normally has a relationship with its bank, it may have subsidiaries, it may have whatever, but it'll have a law firm as well to tie up all this stuff, and it's got an accountancy firm involved. Potentially, do those three elements disappear if this works? Yeah,
well, it's hard to say what'll come of it, but potentially this technology could get rid of a lot of lawyers, bankers, and brokers. You know, a lot of the accounting could be automated essentially, and perhaps done more accurately and more quickly. You know, lawyers may either find themselves replaced by smart contracts or having to become experts in information technology and specializing in smart contracts. But potentially, this technology can cut out a lot of trusted intermediaries that are in the system now.
Just explain the idea of a smart contract. How does that differ from what we have now?
Oh, sorry. So the idea with a smart contract is essentially that you automate in blockchain technology certain outcomes from contracts. So say you deliver me goods and I give you payment. Well, the blockchain technology can say automate payment with Bitcoin when I receive the goods, right? And so there's less need for oversight and third parties to kind of interfere in that process.
Fewer people involved in the process.
Well,
fewer people, fewer machines, I suppose.
Well, yeah, fewer people sort of directly being involved as trusted parties who require fees for their services. So it can reduce administrative overhead. You know, that could be very valuable here in the UK, where you can cut out a lot of costs associated with transactions. It may be more valuable, as you heard, in countries where people have less faith in their institutions, their central banks, their regular banks.
How do you think this could, in time, then, allow smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, would they, in a similar way, obviously at a smaller scale, would this be affordable, or will there be some kind of fee to join this blockchain technology and to adopt it for my business?
Yeah, I think it is definitely going to lower transaction costs and barriers to entry, right? Any fees that are associated with this are almost certainly going to be significantly less than the fees charged by existing institutions, which themselves take on a lot more risk, have to provide a lot more service, and have the ability to charge more because there's fewer options for potential clients.
You talked about a blockchain community. I suppose this is just a nascent one at the minute. It's just starting out all this, isn't it? But that would be important that that community still existed. So would there have to be a motivation for people to retain this technology, to retain the data, to actually share blockchain ledgers?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it only survives that way, right? And right now, the primary incentive in doing it is the people who maintain nodes, which are their own sort of software or hardware systems designed to maintain these ledgers, generate value by either mining bitcoins, for example, or by charging some transaction costs for maintaining ledgers and transactions, but it's a very small amount of money, right? Particularly compared to traditional banking institutions.
And this could ripple on around the world, because as we mentioned in the film, you know, even places where you might think the economy isn't that sophisticated, or there isn't a high street bank and a fleet of lawyers to do deals, you could still get a deal done, and the value would be absolutely certified by this electronic transaction.
Indeed. I mean, I think that is perhaps its greater application, where people, as we heard in the video, half of the people in the world almost don't have bank accounts, right? They don't have a bank that they can go to oversee a large transaction like this. It can be done safely electronically now.
But just to bring back in the Bitcoin and the criticism from Jeffrey Robinson earlier on, the value of this seems to be determined by unconventional means. I mean, the value of my pound, your dollar, whatever it might be, there are some kind of international norms about that, either against gold, against the performance of a government. The lack of that, does that worry you?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I mean, the pound used to have a gold standard, right?
Yeah.
So you had a £5 note. You could go into the Bank of England and say, I'd like my 5 gold sovereigns now, and they were obligated to pay that to you. And now we don't have that, right? A £5 note is worth that because the Bank of England says it is, and you know, consumers are willing to give it a certain value. I mean, in a sense, you have the same phenomenon going on with Bitcoin. It's worth what people are willing to pay for it, and people are willing to pay a lot of money for it right now.
Interesting. We'll come back to it right now, but thank you very much indeed.